sureties, 18 in total, I guess, that have been sitting around for a while. And I think your idea of breaking them in, since we have to vote on them individually, doing sort of 6 per meeting as your suggestion, I think good to get these out of the way. But maybe you can give the board a little more clarity on exactly what these are and why they kind of have piled up and then been dumped on your lap.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second and I'll start screen sharing, and then I can kind of explain it a little bit better. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if I can get the screen up. There we are. Can I actually have the screen sharing turned on, please? All right, well, in the sense of, all right, so in the matter of expediency, I'll just go ahead and start now. We have a total of 18 driveway sureties that have accrued over the past, at this point, a few to several years. I think the oldest one we have is going back to 2020. I got this list from Ninochka, our town accountant here, and she reviewed them, and all but 3 of them are due to be released, and that occupancy has already been granted. As I mentioned, these projects are a couple of years old now, past the end date of the surety notice. And so for each of those items that you see, most notably the first 6 that I have outlined for you there, those ones there are due to be released to the initial issuer. Each one of these is evenly valued at $1,000, which is the standard surety put up for each driveway project. And so each one of these must be voted on individually. We can't do them as a batch, notably because each one of these items pertains to a different address. So as such, each of them requires their own independent standalone motion. So it should be a matter of procedure just to simply bring all of these up, have you all vote on releasing the surety that we have in the amount of $1,000. And we can just continue starting at the top of the list and working our way down. Of the 18, I decided to break it up into 3 batches, notably in that since some of these items are a few years old, there's no immediate pressing need to have this exactly passed right away. And as a mercy to our administrative assistant who's helping us with the minutes generation, it's a bit of a mercy shown to her as well. So with that, I would like to bring it to the chair to begin releasing these items.
Yeah, sure. And I assume these are, to be honest, I don't recall ever releasing one of these in my time in the board, and maybe that's just because no one was ever screaming for their money. I assume this is just money that folks would are required to post in case like damage happens to the town road when they're putting the driveway in or something like that.
Exactly. It's surety in case if something were to go sideways, or if there's something quirky that pops up that happens to cause damage to nearby structures, or let's say the roadway that it abuts, or anything like that, in the adverse event of that happening. None of these have occurred, thankfully, blessedly. So each of these is due to safely be released back to the original issuer.
Okay, I'm good with that. If anyone else on the board has questions, feel free. Otherwise, I'm happy to entertain a motion kind of one by one if someone has the list in the agenda that they want to.
To the chair, if I may, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I do have the ability to share the full Excel spreadsheet if you'd like to see the list in total, because there are 3 items that are not due to be released, and those are color coded as well. If you're curious.
Yeah, please.
All right. Okay. Can you all see that here?
It's coming up. Yeah.
Fantastic. So you guys can see all these here. So in the dark green, these top 6 here, those are the first batch effectively. For the next meeting, I'll again color code the next 6 that are not yellow or red to the same degree of dark green here. But as you can see going down here, Ninochka was really gracious enough to put notations for each one of these, denoting when they were issued, their occupancy, and whether or not they're due to be returned. All of them except for those 3 middling ones there, the Long Hill Road, Lot 18 of Keys Farm, and 126 Oak Trail. Those are not yet due to be released. For the first and third, no occupancy is yet issued. And for the second one, is recommended to hold on to them until the subdivision that they're a component of is completed. And then they will be due to be released after the permit then then reaches its endpoint. So in case anyone's curious, I have this available, but I'll be updating this as a living document in the next upcoming meetings, just so that way we're all kind of on the same page. Make sense?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okie dokie.
I have the list in front of me if you want me to make motions.
Yeah, that'd be great, Mike, if you can do that.
Sure. So I'll make a motion to release the driveway surety for Sawyer Road, Lot 2B.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Yeah, usually what Valerie was doing, Todd, is just to sort of read each of our names and then we respond I or N. Just easy, whatever's easier for you, though.
Yep, so good. I mean, I'm trying to make sure the transition is as seamless as possible. So I'll just start at the top and we can then read them all out. Right? Roll call. So we'll start with you, sir. Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
We have Michael Gore.
Aye.
We have Robert Romer.
Aye.
Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Jim Barr.
Aye.
And Eric Nayland.
Aye.
Very good.
I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for 90 Oak Trail, Lot 4A/24.
Second.
Roll call. Again, I'll begin with Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
We have Mark Sprague.
Aye.
We have Michael Gore.
Aye.
Robert Romer.
Aye.
Jim Barr.
Aye.
Eric Nayland.
Aye.
Very good.
Hey, Todd, just for records, Bob is the associate, so I'm not
That's
sure.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It's really only for special permits. I apologize. I'm just going down the list.
No problem.
Sure. Okay. And next.
I'll make a motion to release the driveway surety for 105 Oak Trail, 4A/43.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Michael Gore.
Aye.
Jim Barr.
Aye.
Eric Nayland.
Aye.
Great.
I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for 150 Oak Trail.
Second.
Roll call. Begin with Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Michael Gore.
Aye.
Jim Barr.
Aye.
And Eric Nayland.
Aye.
We'll make a motion to release the driveway surety for 91 Century Mill Road, Lot 1.
Second.
Roll call vote. Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Michael Gore.
Aye.
Jim Barr.
Aye.
Eric Nayland.
Aye.
And I will make a motion to release the driveway surety for Norse Road, parcel 6B 175, number 112.
Second.
Roll call vote. Beginning with Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Michael Gore.
Aye.
Jim Barr.
Aye.
Eric Nayland.
Aye.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Todd, for getting this sorted out, and everyone for your patience. We're just about right on time for the public hearing we have at 7:15. So I'm just going to stall for a minute here while I pull up the public hearing notice to read.
Fantastic. We have Jackie and Alex Duhani as well. Let the attendance reflect.
Okay. 7:15. So we have a public hearing. I'm going to read the notice. Just want to make a note for the record that, as it says in the agenda, there was a typographical error when this was posted. The parcel number posted in the posting, which is map 5E number 88, is incorrect. It's 5E number 100, and Todd checked with the town clerk, and it was just advised that we note that for the record during the meeting. We don't need to repost and go through that again. So just want to make that note. I will read it, and I'll read it correctly. So, in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, notice hereby given. The Bolton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 14th, 2022 at 7:15 p.m. via Zoom video communications to hear and act upon the application of Alpha Terra Design LLC of 5 Bridle Path, Shrewsbury. The applicant is seeking a backland lot special permit pursuant to Section 250-13 of the Code of the Town of Bolton, the residential zoning district, for property located at 0 Main Street, identified on Assessor's Map 5E as parcel 100. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, if we have the applicant or representative that would like to take us through the project, that would be great.
Great. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
sir.
Yeah. Sorry. So Chris Anderson with Hannigan Engineering here on behalf of Alpha Terra Design LLC for a special permit for a backland lot off of Main Street. Am I able to share my screen, or is anybody able to provide the plan just so I can point on the screen for everybody?
I can do either. Would you like to share, or would you like me to be in the driver's seat? Either way, all good.
I can share it if that's fine.
Sure. Let me see. Multi-sided. Chris. Okay, I'm gonna make you the host for a moment. That should allow you to share. Okay, I promoted you, Chris. You're able to share now. Okay.
So can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Great. So this plan of land was brought before the board a few meetings ago for an A&R plan. The follow-up was for the actual special permit in order to create the physical backland lot. Just to refamiliarize the board with the project, we have Main Street along here. It's a vacant parcel of land designated as 5E parcel 100. It's the intent of the applicant to develop 2 buildable lots along the property. One will be a standard zoning compliant lot. The second one will be a reduced frontage lot. As you can see here, we have frontage, about 60 feet of frontage along Main Street, which is in excess of the 50 feet. From that point, we maintain a lot width of 50 feet throughout the entire neck of the building or the property itself, and then it balloons out to a much larger portion of land. All in all, you have about 19 acres of parcel area. So well in excess of the 4.5 acres, and we have a significant area of upland area as well. So there's more than the 1.5 acres of contiguous land located outside of the wetland areas and floodplain. That's pretty much it for the special permit. If there's any questions from the board, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
What's the plan for the driveway? That's one thing I would get an idea about.
Sorry, you're breaking up there for a moment. Can you repeat?
Oh, sorry. Just asking about what the intent of where the driveway would be. I do see like the easement there, but where it would be on the road and that kind of.
So the road or the driveway will be shared between the 2 properties. I'll enter right here. I'll switch over to. See, I think I have a better overall picture here. So if here's a rendering of the actual plan, site plan that we're proposing. Here's the property line right here. The driveway will be located on the narrow neck portion of the site. We'll be performing a wetland crossing. We've been in front of the Conservation Commission. We got the order of conditions last week. We're just waiting for all the signatures to come in before it's formalized. But the driveway extends on through the property, does a straight shot to minimize wetland impacts. And at that point, it does a serpentine route up the hill in order to gain access to the 2 buildable lots in the back portion of the property.
Are these just single family houses? This is Jackie Littrell from 46 Meadow Road.
These will be only single family homes, correct?
Okay, I don't have any other additional questions. Anyone else on the board?
What's the maintenance request? So I see you don't have detention basins. You have kind of this little settling, I forget what you call it, water gardens or something.
Yeah, so there's a couple rain gardens throughout the site. There's one at each one of the near each one of the buildings to handle that area. We're proposing to install a stone line swale along the lower end of the site in order to capture the water so it doesn't create a concentrated flow further down the hill near the wetlands. This swale will have bleeder piping inside of it so that in smaller storm events, the water can just gradually release itself over the course of the run of the driveway. And then larger events, it ultimately gets directed towards a rain garden that's located on the lower portion of the driveway. And now again, we'll just provide some mitigation relative to the stormwater impacts and whatnot. And there's a secondary one that also goes towards the latter portion of the driveway towards the wetlands. That one's just a straight stone line swale that starts into a level spreader to help mitigate the velocity of that as well. There will be an operation and maintenance plan associated with this, and it'll be part of the homeowners association for the maintenance of the driveway itself as well. So the driveway and all applicable drainage utilities will be covered as part of that O&M.
Okay, so is it just the rain garden along the driveway that's part of the O&M, or is it going to be the 2 on the private lots for the houses as well?
Nope, the rain gardens on the private lots will remain in control of the individual house lots. But the rain garden, the swales, the piping, the culvert, the wall, and the driveway will all be under the homeowners association.
Okay. What's the annual maintenance on those look like?
For most of it, it's actually just relative cleanup, making sure that the culvert stays clear of any large debris, branches, leaves like that. The rain garden on a regular basis gets just cleared out of any dead vegetation and any sediment that might form. That's pretty much the immediate operation maintenance that happens pretty much on a monthly to annual basis. Over a long term, stone will probably need to be replaced as necessary. It becomes covered with vegetation and sediment and just needs to be replaced or the sediment removed. And that's more along the 10-year time frame rather than the 1 to monthly time frame. And the pipes should stay intact as long as they don't get destroyed for the life of the property.
And if they're not maintained, they're just going to fill with sediment and just basically run over the emergency spillways.
Correct. Yeah. If it was not to be maintained, that would be the ultimate result.
Is there an existing driveway there now, or is this a new cut?
Completely new cut.
Okay. Any trees coming out for it? And sight lines have been verified?
The sight lines are satisfactory. It's on the outside of a really broad open curve. So there won't be any necessary tree clearing within the right-of-way of Main Street. But I will say there will be significant clearing once you get into the property in order to get to the area. The lot's currently heavily wooded and undeveloped.
So does that crossing at the lower part have to go to Concom or?
Yep, it just went through a couple weeks ago. We got the approval. We're just waiting for the final order of conditions to be issued.
Okay. And what's the height difference between that low point near the crossing and the road? It looks like it goes uphill a little bit.
Yeah. Let me,
Or is it down? I can't really tell.
no worries. So here's the profile of the first portion of the road. It comes off at around 2%. It only drops about a foot, I believe, if I remember my numbers correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only about a 1 foot or 2 foot drop until you get to near the culvert, and then it starts to rise up to meet the grade of the existing land.
Do we know history of this area? Like if it gets flooded? I don't remember any flooding on 117 near that area. But there's going to be a lot of clearing and runoff down the hill. I wonder if this is, if that's what your areas up above are taken care of, or.
Yeah, so the drainage system is designed to help mitigate that, to help spread it across the length. If we were to have no drainage features on this driveway or allow just a free flow, there would be a concentrated point source discharge that would cause a flooding incident. But based on the layout of the drainage, it's supposed to designed to spread it out over the entire length of the drive, so several hundred feet, to help dissipate that impact. And as well, there's no floodplain within this area under the FEMA floodplain maps. So there's no real documented significant flooding event. It is a broad open wetland that receives quite a bit of runoff from the surrounding area. But we've designed the culvert to be large enough in order to encompass that flow and meet all the stream crossing standards. Even though based on this, the regulations with the Conservation Commission, it's not applicable. So the culvert is significantly more designed than what is actually required, but due to the overall size of the contributing area, we felt that it was more pertinent to have a much more well-designed culvert than just a 12-inch pipe going through the wetland.
To the chair, if I may.
Yes, of course.
Chris, can you please pass me the presenter again, just in case? I believe someone's looking to enter the meeting and I don't have the authority to admit them.
Sure, hold on one moment. There you go.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I give it right back.
Okay, so Chris, along that area where you're planning using the infiltration pipe along the edge of the driveway, have you done any soil testing to make sure that it will actually provide any benefit?
We did do soil testing associated with the septic system. It's your typical New England soil. So groundwater we saw was around 3 feet. But as part of the overall design, we put in additional measures to allow for, during construction, finger drains and French drains going up the slope. But we're putting in that 6-inch perforated subdrain pipe that will run along the length of that, or the cut of the driveway, to help intercept any groundwater. That and the institution of the finger drains during construction will capture any kind of groundwater bleed we see in the area and direct that towards the drainage system. But it's not intended to be an infiltration trench. The interception.
Okay, but you haven't done any testing to make sure that that'll actually work.
It's just your typical roadway subdrain system. So that'd be about the extent of that.
Okay. You're not filling me with confidence that it's well engineered here. that you actually know that it's providing sufficient capacity. Okay. And, you know, just, I mean, between myself and my neighbors, my neighbor has 30-minute plus perks. I have 6-minute perks. So, you know, and that's, you know, 100 feet apart. So, you know, just saying, well, the perks at the top of the hill look good for the septics doesn't say anything about what's going on down the hill here. So if you're counting on the perforated pipe to provide any benefit, then you need to kind of prove that.
The perforated pipe is only intended to intercept the groundwater, not infiltrate it. So it's meant to be a long-term maintenance feature and to ensure that groundwater doesn't negatively impact the driveway. It provides no stormwater function or infiltration capacity at all. It's very similar to as if you were to cut in a roadway for a large subdivision. Wherever you have a cut that intercepts groundwater table, you're required to put a subdrain in order to alleviate groundwater issues that result in degradation of the road. That is the same principle that we're instituting here, but just on a significantly smaller scale relative to the roadway width, if you will.
Isn't there an awful lot of rock up in that cut?
There will be quite a bit of rock in that area that we'll have to either crush on site or export during construction.
What are the implications to that in terms of absorbing water coming down the road, let alone cutting through the water table in the cut?
So the rock will be over excavated in order to get the site regraded, in order to get landscaping to grow on that slope. So there will be over excavation of the area, but it's typical of any other site. You excavate a certain extent in order to install the features and backfill with the appropriate material to make sure it works correctly.
So you're going to have slopes with brought in loam or other material on the upper side of the cut there?
Correct. So the entire area will be reseeded with a conservation wildlife seed mix, which has a lot more woodier vegetation in the long run. So we're going to allow that slope to effectively revegetate or become a woodland again at the end of the day. It'll have a lot of more of the flowering plants mixture in it that are native to the area. But over the long term, it's the intent that all the disturbed areas outside the scope of the driveway will return to nature. So over the long run, the runoff of that area should be mitigated, at least to some extent, by the institution of the natural vegetation.
Be nice to know to what degree that's going to occur. Because without it, it's going to come, right off the cut, right?
Correct.
So understanding better about what the mitigation of that additional material would be very useful. And I should think would also be fairly useful to the two families that occupy those, particularly in the winter, particularly with ice.
Correct, and that's a component of also that subdrain, is to help intercept that water before it gets to the driveway. So there's a reduction in the impact of the icing on the driveway as well.
Chris, do you have sections along the alignment of the driveway?
I have none prepared at this point, but I can easily get those developed.
Be kind of nice to look at those and just get a sense of what the cut will be and what the additional material would be that's going to mitigate that runoff. Particularly on this would be the north side as you go around that serpentine curve. the north side of the lower section of the serpentine curve.
Can we pull up that plan again, please?
Which one would you like to see?
The overall, the ones that we had before this one. Perfect. Okay. So the structures on the first driveway to the left, that's septic
Yes, those will be the 2 septic fields.
for both.
There you go.
Okay. Where's the, and just out of curiosity, where are the wells?
The wells will be located near the buildings themselves. So the well for this first house, if you will be located off the lower corner of the site. The one on the back will be located along the southern or the westerly side of the building itself as well.
All right.
And those
I
septic.
can't read it. What's the sector, the strange little structure to the lower left of the upper residence? Down,
The upper residence.
yeah, and
or the
come
next one?
down.
I think that's the rain garden,
Oh, okay, that's fine.
and
It was just too small to see.
So you'll have your rain garden, septic tank, and a sewer line going towards the field, and the well will be located in the lower portion of the site.
Chris, would you mind scrolling over to the left? I'm just seeing the septic.
Let me put. So here's the septic field itself.
Chris, was the septic system located there for the 2 houses because you couldn't get perks above there?
Correct. That's the area that we were able to get passable perks in.
is that primary and reserve?
Yep. So you will have the 2 isolated systems. This one right here will have primary and reserve between the trenches. That will serve the first house. The second one will be located right here. That will also have reserve between the trenches and serve the rear house.
And what are the perks on those?
They're around 30 minutes.
And what are the ones over to the right that you're not using?
Those were in excess of 60. So in this area, there's highly variable soils. The slowest perk rate within this area was 30 minutes an inch, but the fastest is at like 4. And obviously the slowest dictates the size of the system. So for the purposes of permitting with the Board of Health, 30 is the magical number.
Yeah.
How much do you know about perk rates up near the other house?
We did do testing up in that area. That as well was in excess of 60.
Okay. So, I mean, there is not an awful lot of chance of percolation off those driveways. I'm just concerned about basically the collection area that will eventually run down to that serpentine curve.
Down to the lower left, if you.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, like right around that area right there.
Yeah, because it's going to collect up on top, since certainly there isn't much in the way of percolability, and come running down that relatively quickly. And the question is it going to be able to be absorbed? Is it going to be able to run off, particularly if the maintenance isn't really high? And is that an issue, particularly with respect to icing? It's not a great place to come off.
Let's see. In other instances of steep cut driveways, what I've done in the past is I've put effectively a 2 foot wide, 2 foot deep, 3 feet deep stone trench that runs along the outer edge of the cut, if you will.
Right.
It acts more as a velocity dissipator, but also allows water to be channeled, if you will, away from the slope itself. So there's not a, for lack of a better term, a serious direct discharge onto that slope that might not allow for the water to adequately percolate across the slope because it's moving so fast. I think that might be a feature that we can institute into the upper portion of the cut, just so I can mark it on the plan so the board's aware. Something along this edge here, putting this filter strip or a stone strip right through here, and all their opportunity would be along the other steep cut.
Would that have to be maintained over the years as well?
That would also be incorporated into the stormwater maintenance system as well.
All right.
To the
But
chair.
I certainly think that would be more defense in depth on this particular case, something that probably wouldn't require as much maintenance, but would certainly serve.
And in those kinds of systems, what we usually use is a much larger stone. So it doesn't collect as much sediment as it typically does. Also, it's in a less sediment loading area, if you will, because it's just receiving runoff from grass and woodlands. So it's not going to see that heavy sediment load that the drainage swell on the lower side of the driveway will experience itself. They'll have to deal with more just, vegetation maintenance rather than anything else. But it's a much larger stone with a much more robust lifespan than the typically smaller stone that we put in the swales that are around the 6-inch plus or minus. The stuff that would be on the top will be around the 12-inch mark.
When you complete the general cut of the driveway and put in the fill you've talked about, and this, if you're going to add it, which I would certainly hope, are you going to do a post-construction review of sedimentation? Make sure that what you're starting with is reasonably clean?
Yep. So as part of the overall project, we also have to file a SWIP, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, because we're very much in excess of 1 acre of land. As part of that final clean out or that final closeout of that process, myself and any other individual from the town, they seem they want to do it, have to walk the site to make sure that everything is pretty much built to spec, everything's working fine, and I can't close off on it until I perform my inspection and I'm okay with the level of cleanliness of the system itself upon the completion of construction.
Okay. So Mike, very simply put, at the end of construction, my concern would be construction debris in that. And after that, there probably is not as high a probability of collection of that.
Yeah, I mean, my concern on this is come winter when you've got snowbanks on one or both sides, and you now have you have a warm day and you have water running down here. There's nowhere for it to go other than straight down the driveway into the wetlands. It's not going to magically jump over into the into your gravel pipe and into the rain garden because there's no path for it. If you've got snowbanks or more likely most of the time ice banks on either side of the driveway. So I'm not quite sure what your all of this works great in sunny California where you don't have to worry about ice, but it's I've seen a lot of places where you just get a little bit of ice and the water has nowhere to go other than straight down the pavement. So I'm not sure what your generally a storm grate or something like that to in the pavement, give the water somewhere to go. It's usually a good solution for in a case like that.
To the chair, if I may.
Yeah, of course, John. Go ahead.
Sure. Sorry, force of habit. We are coming up on the 7:45 mark for the second agenda item.
Yeah, thanks. Maybe I could just ask, you know, first of all, if there's any members of the public that are joined for this that have any questions or comments, as it's a public hearing. Okay.
Pete, I did have one more question on the septic.
Yeah,
So the drain going to the lot one leach field is crossing the driveway for lot two. Was that was all okay? Board of Health said that was okay to do.
It will be okay. I've talked with Bill Brookings, the Board of Health agent. We've done this in other projects. Typically what we do is you'll put the 4-inch Schedule 40 PVC within a 6-inch pipe. So it's double sleeved, and we'll put a redundant one also right next to it in case, God forbid, anything were to happen to that sleeve. We have an alternative way to get the sewer line through that area as well.
Okay. Is that gravity draining, or is it like a pump chamber up by the house in lot one?
Nope, it's purely gravity.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there's lots of slope up there. Are you going to specify any winter maintenance requirements? To Mark's point, one of the ways of dealing with this is to do, when it's snow plowed, to plow off on the extrados and let the water come into that drainage area, as opposed to flying down the road. But only if somebody who knows what they're doing does it.
We can put a little bit more language and verbiage into the how the driveway, let's say, will be paved at the end of the day, or plowed at the end of the day.
But it's both an issue of wetlands and public safety.
Correct. So the mass majority of this driveway is located outside the wetlands and the buffer zones for that. It's only a small portion that's actually located in it, but we do have quite a bit of a shoulder on either side of the drive, so there is an area for windrow plowing along the edges. But in some areas, I believe we might have to push it off a little bit further to get it off the edge of the pavement.
Actually, I have two more questions. So I'm not sure about the locust map and the land around it, but is there any chance of more houses on this and becoming a common driveway, or is it pretty much landlocked now?
It's effectively landlocked. To the north, or sorry, the east of the site, you have an apple orchard, which I don't believe will be developed in the foreseeable future. And along the westerly property line, let me zoom out to the larger scale here. So you have a apple orchard along this portion of the property. You have a farm on this side as well. And along the opposite side, we have significant areas of wetland and other jurisdictional areas that would be very prohibitive to cross with the Conservation Commission. And also, these are all pretty much well-developed single-family homes along the westerly property line. So the ability for them to subdivide and start carving off additional lots is pretty minimal.
Okay. So then my other question was, we're currently looking into a tree cutting bylaw. And the main goal, especially for properties like this, where it's on a steep hill, is to keep as much vegetation and trees as possible to prevent sediment and runoff. So I guess, I don't know, me, but probably the board, we discourage clear cutting large portions of this. The future bylaw is going to have us, I think, even for residential properties, not just business zone properties, but to, mark or note on the thing certain size diameter trees. Just as a means to try to limit clear cutting the entire property, because we're dealing with a subdivision in town on a hill like this, and we've had some major issues because they just clear cut it.
Understood. Yeah, the limit of this clearing is pretty isolated to just the limits of work. We are providing a little bit more area around the houses themselves, but the remaining portions of the lot are intended to remain as is in woodland. Just so the board is aware, the project applicant and proponent is intending to own the larger parcel of land. And his intent is to maintain this as its natural state as much as possible. And I believe he's also in conversations with getting it under one of the 61 chapters for protecting it under the woodland tax criteria and all that kind of fun stuff. So that is within his realm of work. There's no intent to clear cut this site at this point.
But there is a beautiful view over Bolton Spring Farm.
Yeah, the property on the page north as you look at it now.
Yep.
So Todd, do you have any concerns or comments on the application that you'd like to share?
Oh, sorry to interrupt, sir. On the application, not immediately withstanding. However, you guys did bring up some excellent points regarding the drainage as well as the debris concerns that were issued before. I would like to echo those as well. In terms of dimensionality, it complies with the bylaw as written. However, of course, this being a special permit, much of this is open to the purview and within the flexibility of your judgment as a board. Aside from that, all I can say is dimensionality wise, it complies. And provided Conservation Commission is suitably satisfied. Aside from that, it's really under your purview, I would say.
Sure, thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, so we could do a couple of things here, I guess. We could ask the applicant and their engineer to kind of go back and maybe take a look at some of the comments we had tonight and update the plans a little bit, come back to us and continue the special permit to do that, or we could continue the hearing. That's what I meant to say. Or we could either if we want to close the hearing, and then what we've been doing in the past, Todd, is not voting on a decision at the particular meeting, but getting a draft decision written up for the board to review at a following meeting and put some of these comments and things in there, and then vote on it at that time. We can either keep the hearing open or close it for that. So I guess what, from your perspective, Todd, and the rest of the board, what would folks like to see here?
From my perspective, given that there are certain deadlines that must be met after the close of hearing, notably 60 days after closing of hearing, 90 days, there are certain statutes that must be complied with in timelines, and that needlessly shackles your hands a little bit. If you would like to keep this hearing open and continue it, it gives us a little bit more flexibility to get the plans modified and get enough conversation going to get folks happy, or about as well a compromise as you can negotiate, I think. Then at that point, you could always take the vote afterwards. I tend to lean that way because I don't like putting needless restraints upon the board if we can avoid it, especially with those 60 and 90-day statutes in mind. I think it's important.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that. I'm definitely open to continuing the hearing and until our next meeting or a future meeting, depending on what the applicant would like, and then maybe revisiting with a few of these items that we've brought up, further looked at in the plans.
So what are we asking the applicant to do?
Well, as it stands now, getting some, from what I've gathered, getting some better winter maintenance requirements put in place, get some more specificity in terms of debris concerns and removal, getting some of the drainage issues that were outlined by Mr. Romer also addressed to the best degree possible. Are there any others that I've missed?
Yeah, just for clarification, I would like to see some sections in that area around the end of the curve.
So through the chair, on my list of stuff that I've been taking now notes on, My opinion, from what I'm reading of the board, is that obviously an operation and maintenance plan that kind of encompasses the entire life of the project, broken down to what parts need to do what and when. A little bit more of a observation or care taken into placement of snow. I'm thinking off the top of my head, maybe a little bit of a turnoff area for snow storage so it gets away from the stormwater system so it can work as intended. And some additional beefing up of the stormwater system just to help with runoff impacts as part of the project, and obviously the sections of the drive. Those are the short list of what I've had on my docket.
In addition, with that OMP as well, that'll also help for whenever SWIP issues that you have to deal with in the future. It could be useful to draw from that as well.
Yeah, there was a comment from the owner.
Yeah, I saw that, Jim, in the chat. So I see Alex Duhani, the owner. Please, if you could just identify yourself for the record, and feel free to ask questions.
Sure. Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Hi, so my name's Alex Duhani. I'm the owner of Alpha Terra. This is my first time going through this process, so forgive me if it's a silly question. But okay, thank you. So in relation to the backland lot special permit, I know that the other thing that we submitted was the shared driveway application. Is a lot of the points that you guys discussed that you want follow up, is it in relation more to the shared driveway application, or is it to meeting the specifications of the backland lot special permit?
They're really hand in glove. I mean, granted, I've been here for only a week and change, so please take this with as much salt as you prefer.
Okay.
But both of these items work hand in glove. Given that this shared driveway permit, it's important to keep these maintenance items in mind. However, also, since it's also a means of access from one point of the frontage all the way to where the larger of the parcels reside, they need to be seen as working together in tandem. So I would say this is probably evenly split betwixt the two, because means of access are very heavily weighted in terms of special permit granting. However, also the shared driveway is also equally important but parallel item. So they exist kind of in a parallel relationship where they both must be satisfied, but each one is relatively independent of the other. Somewhat.
Okay, understood. And then I just had just in listening in all of the things that were mentioned by the board, the question in relation to winter, the way to plow the driveway properly, I wasn't clear. Was there a specific recommendation made, and could you just provide more explanation just so I understand, what would I guess satisfy the concerns?
Yeah, I think someone else can chime in too, but from what I gather, I think the concern is that the driveway drainage is sort of laid out in a certain way, right? So if you plow the snow all on top of where you want the water to drain, it's going to kind of freeze over and not let the water get there, if I'm understanding the concern correctly. So perhaps, if where the water is supposed to drain off and go into those gravel areas or whatnot, if the snow isn't piled in that area on that side of the driveway, or there's specific areas where they're sort of designated for snow storage that wouldn't interfere with the drainage. Because I think the concern is like not during a snowstorm, but as you start to get melt, a huge amount of snow and ice banks, you start to get melting, and then the water can't actually go where it's supposed to go. If I captured that correctly, if anyone else wants to chime in, please do.
Yeah, we just don't want to turn it into a luge.
Exactly right. I was about to say something similar.
Yeah, watching those plow drivers, they start at the street, kind of push everything off to the right as they go up the hill, which is going to be right on top of the gravel that's there. You get a couple warm days, you get some slush there, you get cold nights, and it all freezes up, and then you get another warm day, and any runoff is now going to be trapped by that ice.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
It's going to be, and it has nowhere to go. So, whether it's adding in some turnout areas. Part of the problem on that I'm just looking at the site is, there's not really any, without cutting another huge amount back, there's no place where you can kind of make snow storage areas. You know,
So what
because
kind-
you basically banked right, you know, from the driveway, you know, on either side, you know, straight up. So, you know, if you want to, you know, add a 10 by 10 area, you're having to cut a huge amount more back into the hillside. You know, so, you know, an alternative would be, you know, to look at, you know, whether it's, you know, some sort of, you know, storm grate or something that, you know, is within the paved areas so that, you know, it's, you know, physically intercepting the water as it's coming down the hill. And whether something like that could be tied into the pipe that's in the gravel, you know, so you've got a good mechanism to move that, you know, a good path for that water to get away from the paved area.
Now, if I may interrupt, Mr. Duhani, this is really just this is the ounce of prevention that'll save you quite a few headaches in the future should everything go as you're anticipating. These items here and these questions and concerns raised are definitely well worth advising and taking into consideration, not just because it's worthy just in that the decision-making body, the special permit granting authority, is mentioning them to you, but these are things that that would pose a thorn in your side should you end up living here. These are worth considering.
Understood. Well, thank you very much for clarifying that. I really appreciate it.
Did you use a 100-year storm or for your calculations? What'd you use for?
Relative to the sizing of the culvert.
Yeah.
We did take a look at the 100-year storm event, and it passes pretty easily.
Okay.
I can provide the calculation if the board would like.
Okay.
I would like to see that as well, please.
Okay, so we're a little bit over time for another hearing, and I think based on the conversation, what we'd like to do is continue the public hearing to a future meeting and have the applicant come back and engineer and address some of these comments that we made tonight. So I guess first the question to applicant and Chris, engineer. You know, we have another meeting scheduled in two weeks, I believe. I don't think we've set a further meeting agenda beyond that yet for the fall, which is something we need to do. Is 2 weeks sufficient, or would you like us to extend to that, or would you like some more time? We can always, you know, if we continued it for 2 weeks and you weren't ready, then we could continue it again.
To the chair, if I could.
Yeah,
We do have some items that have been kind of waiting that I was anticipating to have for the 28th,
Okay.
especially for some of the items that are presently existing. So I wouldn't necessarily advocate for scheduling them for the 28th, possibly for the subsequent, because we still have to vote on approving landscape lighting and planting plans for 357 Main Street. We have to set our planning board fall schedule and continue reviewing zoning amendments and adoption, and then some other administrative items. But we do have some other items that are kind of waiting in the wings and are kind of pressing need for next meeting.
Yeah, sure. I guess my question would be, if we haven't set a meeting following the next meeting yet, how would we continue it from that's never come up.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
We can continue it for the 28th. However, just keep in mind that meeting may run long as the applicant is amenable to that, and as well as you guys are. I'm just as well happy enough to make this one run late.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, that's definitely a question for you.
I'll take a look and see what I can do. Just so I'm aware of the board's criteria. Is there a special timeline at which point you want the material prior to the hearing? I don't want to bombard you at the 20th hour with more information than the board will have an opportunity to review. But I will do my best to try to get everything done by the 28th. And if something comes up and I am unable to get to that, I will reach out to Todd well beforehand and say, hey, I'm okay with kicking it out the next meeting if I can't make that.
And Chris, just in general, I like to have materials at least 48 hours ahead of time, just so that way I can disseminate them to board members and I can chew on them myself, just in time.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you for being so great to work with. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's do that. We'll continue to the next meeting that we have scheduled, and then if we need to just continue it at that meeting, we can. I see there's a question, Butter looking to ask a question. I'd like to ask you if it's possible. We're kind of over time, and I did open it up for questions, and there weren't any. So we're going to continue the hearing to the 28th. So I'd encourage you to come back at that meeting and ask your question, just in the interest of time.
Or Pete, they can also send email.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that gets to the whole board, and then we can, we can think about whatever's in the email ahead of time. So
yeah, that's a great idea, Mark. That's actually really helpful. So if you want to send an email to Todd with any questions or concerns, that gets disseminated to the board, and we'll discuss that.
As long as the board members consider these independently and not in conjunction, not to worry.
yeah. Yeah. We won't violate open meeting law, so.
No, I'd rather say it than not say it is all,
Yeah.
Do we have a time for the meeting on the 28th that we can schedule this?
Yeah. Do we have any other hearings scheduled for the 28th, Todd?
We just have some votes to take. Sorry, I'm reviewing that now. Nothing immediate, no open hearings. We just have some votes that require taking action on. I would say by 7:30 should be reasonable, I would say.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue the hearing for the backland lot special permit for 0 Main Street until our next meeting, September 28th at 7:30.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote. We'll start with Pete.
Aye.
And Mark.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
And Michael.
Aye.
Very good.
All right. Thanks very much, Chris and Alex Appleton. Appreciate you coming and answering our questions, and thanks everyone for the conversation on that.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next agenda item is another public hearing. Let me find the legal notice here. So this is for definitive subdivision plan approval for South Bolton Road. I will read the notice and we can get started. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 11, and Chapter 41, Sections 81T and 81U, notice is hereby given. The Bolton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, September 14th, 2022 at 7:45 p.m. via Zoom video communications to hear and act upon the application of Daniel Motha of Miami, Florida, for a definitive subdivision plan approval and farmland and open space planned residential development special permit for a property identified on Bolton Assessor's Map 2C. It's parcel 23 located on South Bolton Road in Bolton's residential zoning district. The proposed development consists of a 6-lot subdivision. Okay, so I know we had a number of preliminary discussions about this in months past. And if we have a representative of the applicant or representative of the applicant, Jeff, I see you there. Good to see you again. Please have the floor.
Awesome. I apologize. I was hoping my engineer would be on here, but he had another meeting at the same time, of course, which seems to always happen. Todd, if you'd be so kind, I don't have the ability to pull up the plans.
Sure, I can do that if you'll just give me 1 quick minute.
Thank you. And we've already adjusted them slightly just because DPW had just some minimal adjustments. So we had sent those over as soon as we did that, just with some of the drainage and stuff like that. But other than that, we've kind of been through a lot with this already. So really, if you guys have any questions on any of the layouts. I feel like we've done a very good job of just nothing is within wetlands really, and we've created the borders appropriately, and worked with natural heritage, of course, as you guys know. So everything seems to be, from what we understand, kind of good to go.
And to the chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
I will say the plans that I'm sharing here that you can all see before you, those are the ones that have the DPW director's edits and clarifications and questions reflected. So this is the most recent version.
Gotcha. What do we have any info on what those were?
Yes, I do. Some of them were the diameter of some drain pipes. Some were reflected as 10-inch. He wanted them increased to 12. Similar, I won't call them minutia, but relatively minor elements. But minor, but still important, and they are reflected.
Okay. And you had mentioned to me, Todd, that before we want to move forward with voting on this, we need this peer reviewed and a discussion with the peer reviewer.
This would likely require, this is of course within the purview of the board to request environmental impact analysis. For the applicant, it's page 54 and 55 of Bolton's subdivision rules and regs. It outlines exactly the scope of what the EIA actually requires, but still it remains up to the board to require its provision and in order to vote on. But it's just something that I believe with the amount of wetlands prevalent, as you can see on this map here on the easterly side, there are some wetlands, not interwoven, but there are certain pockets of wetlands present, and development runoff may pose an issue. Granted, this is still an item that's within Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, but it's something that warrants consideration, at least at this stage of the initial, of the beginning of the definitive element of this. So that's something that would be well within your right to require the provision of, and it's something that that personally, within my planning acumen, I would absolutely require an EIA.
Sure, absolutely.
Sorry to ramble, but yeah.
That's fine. I was just looking, I know we had provided during the preliminary discussions, which we had a number, we had provided kind of some, I can't remember what we provided, a letter or some feedback. I don't actually see that.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I can provide that as well. I do have a copy of Valerie Ortiz's her memo to the applicant, as well as some promissory language and everything else. So hang on one second, I'll pull that up.
Okay, yeah, I just don't recall off the top of my head what, I remember we had good conversations, but
that's quite all right. Give me one quick second.
Conversations.
Let's test and believe this is it. That's the covenant language. Here we go. That's the one I'm looking for. It's covenant language. Here we are. That's the covenant. Where did I put the? Let's see exactly where I put it here. Hang on. There it is. Okay. Workspace and item. Here we are. Okay, and presto, there we are. This is the exact correspondence that was sent from Valerie's office, as you can see here, from late July 26th. This is just a follow-up email that she sent out, literally outlining in a punch list format what would be required from the applicant in order to complete the process. As you can see here, item 6 and 7 is the performance guarantee. That would be the bond as well. But all these items here, I don't believe I have all of them right yet. I know I don't have 4 hard copies of the subdivision plans. I would require those. And also a hard copy of the drainage report, if that could be provided to me, it would be
Yeah, I gave those all to Valerie
see.
when I submitted everything.
Sure.
Because obviously the drainage report is like 100 pages.
Oh,
So do you need me to give those again?
I'll tear the office apart again as I was looking for it, last week. But if you could, if it wouldn't be too much of an inconvenience, I would
Yeah.
appreciate another hard copy of those if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I can drop
just to save time.
Yeah.
Aside from that, as long as you can just stipulate to me that all 7 of these items have been acted upon, that would put you in good shape. Yeah.
Yeah, they've all been done, and even the performance guarantee as well.
Excellent. And as you can see, the very bottom of that following paragraph that I've highlighted here, they're not a requirement of the submission, as I mentioned. The planning board may request an EIA, an environmental impact analysis, prepared by either a land planner or a registered civil engineer. And the outline for that, as I mentioned before, is on pages 54 and 55 of the subdivision regs of Bolton. It literally outlines the entire scope of work. It shouldn't be too expensive to get one of those, but I do believe with the amount of wetlands presence on this parcel, it kind of belies the need for it. And certainly I would advise the board to, I would recommend the board request that one of these be commissioned. I think that would be a good idea.
I have a question on that. And this is me not knowing the difference. So
Sure.
we've kind of 2 things. One, obviously we stayed away from the wetlands entirely, and I think we didn't have to even ask for any special permissions on that. But more importantly, we worked with I don't know how it intertwines, but natural heritage on a bunch of things within this part of that matters.
Sure. So there's a little bit of overlap between natural heritage, but it's not as if there's no daylight between them. Both of them have different concerns, and they have different purviews that they're focusing on. All of the entire outline of those impact analyses, it's found on page 54 and 55.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. I promise it's not too onerous.
Okay. No worries.
Sure. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message or reach out to Rebecca, our conservation agent. She'll be able to speak with some expertise there too.
Okay. Awesome.
And I will get out of this. There we go. Aside from that, those are all of my recommendations. Personally, I would personally recommend having them provide an EIA for this particular project. I think it's the wiser course of action. And I don't mean to put anyone at a disadvantage or inconvenience anyone, but these decisions are permanent, so they require a little bit more careful thought.
Yep. So I had a couple, and I thought we had discussed these in the past, but I may have, in looking at other things, I may have missed a couple of these things. But on the cul-de-sac, I believe our current regs prefer not having an island in the middle. Both DPW seems to prefer not to have one, and it reduces the overall footprint of the impervious area.
Yeah, we did talk about that, and then I don't think we ever came to a decision, because then we were talking about like curbing that needs to go for the island, and how that impacts fire trucks and things of that nature. So it is that we're not doing an island at all.
I would check with DPW and fire. I mean, fire will have, the fire chief will have minimum radius that's required so the trucks can turn.
Yeah.
And the DPW will have some preferences there. I mean, the curbing is a separate thing that the board is requiring granite curbing, not Cape Cod berms anymore. We've had too many issues with the Cape Cod berms to keep allowing them. So, but overall, if you get rid of the island, the overall the radius area, the area that's paved decreases dramatically.
Mhm.
Which, especially in an area here where you've got, a lot of wetlands and stuff in the area, that's a big thing. The other thing, let's see here, looking at plans on the phone is always fun. On lot 4, and this, I know the Historic Commission gets a little bit cranky when you start having impacting some of the existing stone walls. And it looks like the house and garage go right, sitting right on top of an existing stone wall that's back in there. So I don't know if you can do something to shift that, or what your plan is with that wall to kind of help preserve part of it.
Okay.
Also, we have there will be a requirement that no rocks from a stone wall can be removed from the site. So got to do something with them. Got to incorporate them somewhere here, but it's definitely something that stood out when I was looking at the plans earlier.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what are there any suggestions from the board about, the house positions are kind of locked in terms of with the buffer zones and everything we had to come up with. So
what I can say, I apologize for interrupting. It's the legacy of these stone walls to be used as lot delineation. To whatever degree you could recreate that would at least be in spirit of what they were originally intended.
Okay.
Taking the rocks that are there and rebuilding, reconstructing a wall, along the property line or something would be a good.
Okay.
As long as you're not clearing an area to build that wall, that would be.
Yeah. Makes sense.
It'd be kind of circular, I think.
Kind of defeats some of the purpose there, but I mean, along the lot line, along the kind of as a delineator for the road, something like that would I think would I don't know whether the Historic Commission has to review these or not, but that would certainly go a long way to keeping them happier.
Yeah, it would be definitely an appreciated gesture before this local commission. I think that's well worth the time.
Yep, absolutely.
Just one thing for me, in the past, for some of these subdivisions, prior to voting on the permit, we've gone out, for a site visit to take a little bit of a look. I don't know, what's exactly at this location now and whether that makes sense at all, but just something wanted to bring up. We haven't done that for a while. We haven't really had any new ones for a while. I don't know if anyone would find that helpful, or Todd, what your thoughts on something like that?
I always tell applicants I would rather them send me too much than not enough. I would rather sift through it than have to be left wanting. So if there's anything that you think I might be interested in, send it my way and I'll be sure to pare it down. Okay.
Yeah, no, I guess I was saying whether we want to actually go out at the site and take a little walk around.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I missed that part. Yeah, I'd love to.
I don't know, and anyone else on the board, we haven't done that in a while, but I don't know if we've had a new, subdivision project come up that I'm trying to think. I know we did it at Keys Farm. I know we did it off the one on Main Street.
Powers Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd certainly be interested in doing it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe Todd, if you can work with the applicant and potentially their engineer, if possible, to, set something up, at a time when, what we've done in the past is the plan will kind of send out like a little doodle poll or kind of an idea of when times might work for people. Not everyone can attend, but maybe a couple of us, can.
Yeah, it can't be a quorum, of course, but unless everyone is completely silent whilst walking the site and not discussing it in any way.
No, I think in the past they've been posted as either posted as a meeting or we're not deliberating a decision there. We're observing the.
You can talk about the Sox game, can't talk about the item at hand. Yeah. Yeah, I'd be happy to drop a doodle poll or at least kind of reach out to everyone and make sure we can get some overlap somewhere. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
And then, sorry, Todd, just a clarifying question.
Sure.
The EIA that you recommended, I think that's a great idea. Is that, from what you mentioned to me the other day about the peer review prior to,
Exactly.
Is that same thing or separate or kind of?
Yeah, it's in the same spirit of thing. It's an independent entity that ascertains what the impact of this particular development would be within a narrow scope of environmental elements. So yeah, that's what I meant by peer review. Nothing so overly formal as to require anything else, but the EIA is a good idea, and I'm glad to see that that Bolton allows for the provision of that at your request. Usually something like that's kind of like pulling teeth on other municipalities, but here it's rather built in. I like it. So while we have it, we should use it.
So it might be worthwhile just sharing that very briefly, those 2 pages.
Oh yeah. I can pull that in.
But just to give you a sense of what's in it.
Yeah, give me a moment. I'll pull it up. Okay.
It used to be my business, so I know.
All right. Can you guys see this okay? Am I there we go. We want page 54 and 55.
No, it's still showing the other thing.
Yeah, we're looking at your folder structure right now.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything, Todd.
Just getting us to the right page, and then I'll go ahead and share it over. 47, 2, 3. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing that, and then I'll start sharing the proper one here. Okay, so here we are. This is the outline for the EIA. It covers everything that both you and your agent are going to have to be responsible for. Yeah. So surface water and soils, septic and traffic analysis, rather land use analysis. It's pretty broad. It shouldn't be overly onerous for either you or the agent that you employ to generate one. So it shouldn't be too expensive, but it still is quite important. So I don't want you to minimize that at all. Okay.
Yep.
So again, if you like, I'll separate these 2 pages out, and I'll make sure I disseminate it to the members of the board as well. And if you like, I can send you another copy of it as well, so that way we'll all be on the same page. We all know exactly what's required. Okay.
Yep, please do. Thank you.
You got it.
Or just the link, it's online, so.
Yeah, it's all online. You saw I just pulled it up now. It only takes but a minute. But it's in, if you remember, it's in the in the memo that Valerie sent you back in July. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll get it over to you again. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, with that in mind, I'm going to end the share here. There we go.
Okay, any other members of the board have any questions on this?
Is there a plan that shows where the proposed septic and wells are going to be?
Yeah, there should be.
I didn't see it in the plans that are in the packet.
Don't believe there is.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Yeah, so we're going to need those as well.
Yeah.
See if, yeah, because that wouldn't be.
Yeah, and as we were talking with the previous in the previous hearing, one of the things we were starting to look at very carefully is the amount of clearing that needs to be done and making sure that that's minimized to the, as much as possible. So, that feeds into like the traffic, the call into the cul-de-sac and, where some of the limits of clearing are with relation to the house and the septic and well, kind of reduce that is that clearing as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other members of the public on the meeting that would like to ask a question or make a comment on this application?
Excuse me. This is Mark Can at 182 Century Mill. Thanks for all the detailed review, and thanks to the developer also for the year that's being taken here. Question, I remember looking at the state's plans for endangered species and other things that were in that area. Has there been a formal written statement from the state to the developer and or owner or the town that says, yea, verily, they've reviewed this and they're good to go? I'm not lobbying one way or the other. I'm simply asking.
So because of the endangered species in the lot, we had to work with Natural Heritage to approve plans, which ended up, making some buffer zones and things like that for the endangered species. So Natural Heritage had put through their comments and corrected that the things needed to be corrected for these plans for the endangered species. I think it was the marbled salamander, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So Jeff, they gave you all of that and you've incorporated it into the new plan.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments before we decide on the path forward here?
The only other comment I had was way back when I looked at the plans, there were some really long throws from the roundabouts to get to some of the individual lots. And I know that the board was going to close with the fire department to make sure that they thought that they could get down, turn around and get back out. I assume that that's all been done.
Yeah, the plans were submitted to fire and police as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, did we get any feedback or comments from them yet, or are they still pending?
Not that I know of. I don't know.
Todd, you're on. You're muted if you said something there. Sorry.
Thank you. It was getting lonely. No, I have not. It's all still pending. I haven't received anything one way or the other from from fire or police.
Okay.
That's a good comment. I mean, a good distinction. That just submitting them to them is good, but they need to respond. So wisely said.
Yeah, we usually always like to get feedback, and usually they'll send an email that is put in a packet in the meeting that, if there's anything like no comments or minor, if there's anything more significant, sometimes it creates more of a conversation, or the fire chief, police chief could of course come to talk to us, but usually they give us written feedback, and we review that if there's anything to talk about. So we'll definitely make sure we get their comments before making a decision. Okay, so I think we definitely want to continue this hearing.
Just a quick question. So I wrote it down correctly for my engineer. So there is supposed to be an island. Just making sure I wrote that down correctly.
So I guess what we need to get the opinion of the fire chief and the DPW director. In the past, when we've looked at some plans that had an island, and we got comments, I recall in one instance, the DPW director preferred not to have it, so they don't have to plow around it. It's easier to just plow through that. Also, we looked at some calculations a couple of years ago, and if you don't have an island, it's less pavement, right? Because the radius can be smaller, and even it turns out less pavement overall, which is preferable. So I think in that case, we would kind of defer. The other thing is every DPW director is different, and every project is a little different. So I think for this one, we'd want to specifically ask the fire chief, based on the turning radius of with or without an island, of what they'd like to see, and the DPW director, whether an island or not an island. And we'd kind of go with that unless there's any other special considerations to take into account.
Okay. All right.
I think we need to balance that with impervious pavement, though.
Bingo.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was kind of interesting a few years ago, Bob, when we, people think, oh, an island, there's less pavement. And we did a calculation, at least in one thing, and it was much more pavement with the island in there and having to pave all the way around it, which was maybe not, you look at the plan, you don't necessarily think that. So I think that would be a good way to, if your engineer, Jeff, can take a look, one way or the other. And also we could, get feedback from the right departments. We prefer less pavement if it makes sense to do that with everything else considered equal.
And to add more complexity, even the presence of a cul-de-sac is a very divisive issue within the planning world. It's never simple.
All right. Thank you.
So I went back and looked at my notes that I have the planning board, the town planner back when, and the items I had, I think you've covered them, but there's a couple I didn't hear anything about. One was submit to safety, and the fire, which you've talked about. Another was the size of lots, and that was fixable, and I think we're pretty good shape for that. Then the board raised the question on public parking relative to the use of the unbuilt wild areas and how that was going to be funded and paid for relative to the care and keeping of those parking areas for public set-asides. There was questions on that, and also whether there would be needed to have any shrubbery or other things to shield people in the area from direct views of another lot. And there was a question on the period of time for construction, which that might be a downstream issue. I know after Century Mill Estates went in, there were all sorts of problems of work on the weekends and work at after hours, and it was going to be an 8 to 5 thing. So the two things I didn't hear anything about tonight were construction hours, which might be a downstream issue. And then the other issue was on these wetland areas for public access, how is parking going to be handled? Who's going to be responsible for maintenance? And what happens during the winter? And how is that funded? And that was brought up not by abutters, but it was brought up by the board itself. And I haven't heard that commented on yet.
Yeah, we had spoken just about 3 parking spots off of the cul-de-sac, like crushed stone or something like that, for access to the open space area. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I know the rest of it probably falls under conservation as far as maintaining the open space area. I would know about that though.
I don't know, Jeff, either of the answer to that question. And I'm not saying it's the developer's problem. I'm not saying it's the town's problem. I just know the town raised it, and they raised the question of who was going to pay for keeping it up to date, clean, and accessible for people to use. So just reminding the board of what they brought up. And if it's a hanging chad, you should try and address it at some point.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for that. So first of all, on the construction hours, I know that's I recall hearing some issues about that sentiment. That would be part of the decision, and those would be specifically spelled out, in that, and the weekday, any weekends or holidays need approval of the board kind of thing. It's typical, right? It is a little bit downstream. So we would spell that out, the specific construction hours in the decision and the permit. In terms of the parking, I think this, personally, I don't, the preliminary hearings went over a long period of time, so I must have not been at the meeting where that was discussed because I don't recall it. But looking on the plans, I don't see that noted on there. So maybe Jeff, if you could talk to the engineer and see if we get that specifically, noted where that is on the plans. And then in terms of the maintenance, I guess we'd have to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, these hearings went over a long time, as you said, and Valerie had a note on this in her file, and it was dated 12/10/21, if that helps you. And if you can't find it, I can always provide it.
Yeah, I'm probably the one who brought up the, asking about the parking for access. I think normally what other places have done is, that the developers, can, install those areas, and then, when the town, or if the town takes it, takes the cul-de-sac as a public road, then it, obviously the maintenance of those goes to the town or in conservation trust or whoever, an Eagle Scout project, something like that. So that definitely, but yeah, they definitely, if your intention is to add a couple spots there, then need to be shown on the plan.
Yep, absolutely.
And the construction hours, I mean, I know it's a sore point with from Century Mill Estates. They had the same hour restrictions that every other development does. They just occasionally chose to not follow those restrictions, and they got fined accordingly. There's several times I know where the police were out and you know, shut work down and they gotta, you know, there's a fine that they had to pay to, you know, to the town because of that. So, you know, it's a pretty standard, you know, pretty standard work hours that we put in every special permit. So, you know, and we do the same thing here.
Pete, with respect to parking, I think it'd be worthwhile sorting that out, sort of as a standard approach with Conservation Commission, as well as DPW. I know we've had challenges in the past on Woodside Drive and Harris Farm, with lack of understanding where that parking is and an understanding among the residents of where it is and an understanding among visitors where it is and who's responsible for it. So it'd be kind of nice to have a memorandum of understanding there.
Yeah, and we may want to think about having a couple of, you know, having a sign, you know, indicating where that
Right.
is. You know, again, to avoid any misunderstandings from anybody.
Yep. It can get messy if you don't prevent it.
Yeah, little communication goes a long way.
Okay, well, if there's no other comments at this time, I would entertain a motion to continue the hearing. And I think given that we only have the next meeting scheduled on the 28th, we'll have to do it for then. And if you know, we need more time, or Jeff, you and your engineer need more time, we can always just continue it to a later meeting once we have our schedule beyond that.
Yep.
Hey, where does the board stand on the impact assessment now?
We
Oh,
should
yeah.
motion and vote on that.
Yeah, in my opinion, we should definitely ask for that.
Yeah.
We have a time on the 28th that we're gonna go for.
Yes, looking at the pattern that we have here so far, I would say 8:15 would be a good conservative estimate.
I will make a motion to continue the hearing for the phosphorus special permit property identified as Assessor's Map 2C, parcel 23 on South Bolton Road until September 28th at 8:15.
I'll second.
Todd, if you could just do roll call for us.
Sure thing. Roll call. We will begin with the chair, Pete.
Aye.
And Mark,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and Jim, rather.
Aye.
Where's the other one?
Okay, thanks, Jeff, very much. We look forward to talking to you again. Thanks, everyone, for all your comments on this.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, board. Thanks, Jeff.
To the chair, if I may.
Absolutely.
Seeing as this is the first agenda that I've submitted to you all, I wanted to get your take on what should come next. Would you rather have, say, old business or items not foreseen by the chair? Would you rather have a planner's report at the beginning or the end? I just want to know more or less what kind of bone structure you're looking for, so that way for the future meetings, it'll kind of conform to what you're looking for.
Yeah, sure. You know, from my perspective, one thing that was helpful was to have the brief planner report at the beginning of the meeting. We had done it at the end sometimes, and sometimes, you know, if the meetings drag on, everyone gets a little bit sleepy, and so, you know, I think having a brief, you know, 5 or 10 minutes from you, anything you want to share with the board right at the beginning is great. We've kind of been doing, the meeting starts at 7, and any any hearings would be 7:15 or later to give us that initial time. And then, from a business perspective, depending on how the hearings go, we kind of fit that in. If we think there's going to be a little bit of time in the beginning to do a couple of quick items of business, we do that, and then any others, can go at the end. But sometimes if there's a gap, we'll move those up. That's anyone else have feedback? That's from my perspective.
That works. I mean, every board's a little bit different. Everyone has their little quirks and their different MOs. So I just want to know what rhythm you guys prefer, so that way I can make sure that I accommodate. Does anyone else
Todd, can you let Eric back into the meeting real quick? I think he had to switch.
Oh yeah, my gosh, yeah, he must have dropped there. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, I find the planners report at the beginning,
sure,
because it also helps bring us up to speed on some of the things that may be coming up later in the meeting.
Sure thing.
The one thing that Valerie did that I found helpful was that there was one link that had all the supporting documents for the meeting under it.
Sure.
And several different. So so I'm sitting in a meeting at work. I can pull that up and just kind of click through the different parts of it, and
sure. I mean, I did send out all the materials for you guys, but I'll make sure I'll just put them located on the website, perhaps, or something like that.
You sent them all out, but it was like in an email, it's like, okay, here's the link for this hearing. Here's a different link for this other.
Sure.
As opposed to here's the link for all of the materials for the meeting.
You got it.
Todd, I can forward you one of those old emails that probably still has a valid link, so you can see what it sort of looked like. It was just everything was in one spot. It was very helpful.
You got it. No, that's not hard at all. I can absolutely do that. I just wanted to. This is the first time I got to meet you guys, so I wanted to know what your rhythm of work looks like, so that way I can accommodate for all the ones in the future.
Perfect.
Okay. Does anyone else have any? Anything?
The only other thing I wanted to bring up, Todd, just I know you're kind of just getting in and digging through all the stuff. We had started talking to Valerie, and we'd had a few conversations about potential, articles for annual town meeting next year. And what tends to happen, and I'm sure you've seen this in the past, is as you start tracing back the time from May, we need to start having any public hearings early in 2023. So we're kind of thinking, anything we want to do, we want to get squared away, in the next month or two, we could start working on that. So, if I know we had kind of a pretty extensive list, the intention was not to do all those. We were kind of just talking about ideas and priorities. So, maybe as you have time to take a look, if there's any that you feel really strongly about. We were kind of asking, we had a few items, Eric mentioned the tree protection bylaw, we had a few items that we were kind of prioritizing. Valerie had a couple on her side, but maybe as you get time, and I know it's you're coming up to speed, so it doesn't have to be by our next meeting, but taking a look, if there's anything that you think we really should try to do for next year, any that are kind of that you think are easier or harder, it would be great to get your feedback on that when you have time to do it.
Absolutely. And of course, I'll be as I'm working with other committees like master plan, etc. I'm sure that'll kind of shake the tree loose, pun not intended, and something else will fall from that. And then we'll take some of those ideas and we'll nurture that a bit, and I'll bring those ideas before you. Okay.
Great. So unless anyone has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All right, roll call. Let's start with the chair.
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye. Great job, Tom.
Yeah, thanks very much, Todd. It's been great.
Oh yeah, this has been great. I'm looking forward to this. Once I get a rhythm, life will be great.
You got it.
It's already great. Come on.
Let's not get crazy, but yeah, have a great night, everyone. Take care.
Welcome aboard again, Todd. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.